So for me, it was hard to approach and review Dune Part 1 and Part 2. There's no Dune Part 1 review. You won't find it on my channel. In general, it was hard for me to review it and talk about it. Now you may ask why. It also took me a long time to do it, but in the end I had to do it. So I'm gonna discuss it, okay? Let's discuss it. So yeah, welcome to another cozy movie review. Make sure to grab some snacks or a mug of tea or cup of coffee, whatever you wanna eat or drink, because this is gonna be a long one. I have a 2-page review, so buckle up. So Dune, both the movies, Part 1 and Part 2, are based on Frank Herbert's epic science fiction novel, which came out in 1965. And no, I haven't read the books yet, but I surely will because I'm into it. Okay, so don't spoil it, please. And I'm sure the next movie will come out because from what I've seen, the movie has performed very well in the box office. And the critics, everyone is praising the movie, so they're definitely gonna make Dune Messiah. Okay, so that's definitely gonna come out in a few years, and I will read the books. It might also be a common knowledge that there have been other adaptations from the books other than Villeneuve's, one being the 1984 one, directed by David Lynch, and a miniseries that came out in 2000. So the story is set in distant future where there are several houses. Like imagine kind of like Game of Thrones stuff, but set in space and distant future like that. And these houses rule planets and territories and all that stuff, okay? Then there's this House of Atreides, and they're really good and decent people. We see the young Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, and then we meet his mother, Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who is a Bene Gesserit. So they're this sort of witch sisterhood kind of thing, and they're quite powerful religion-wise. Basically, they hold political and religious power. Then we also meet Paul's dad, Duke Leto Atreides, played by Oscar Isaac. And he is this likable character, okay? And he's so nice, but spoiler alert for the first film, he gets killed. How did that happen? Who killed him? Wait. By Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, played by Stellan Skarsgård, who's basically the head of the House of Harkonnen. Now, the House of Harkonnen attacks the House of Atreides and plans to wipe them off on the face of their planet. And they think they've done it. They think that they have killed them all. But that's just what they think. So Paul and his mother, Lady Jessica, run away. They, in a way, run and take refuge to the Fremens, whose leader is Stilgar, played by Javier Bardem. We also get to meet Chani very briefly in the first film, who's played by Zendaya. And Chani is the girl who Paul has seen in his dreams and hallucinations and, this stuff. Now, the Fremens live in desert and they know the way of living there. They also use the spice, which is a very important thing in this storyline, and to put it simply is it's a drug. They get high on it. But it is important. Okay, so bear with me. So basically the war between the houses is because of this spice. So basically much of the war is because of the spice. It's important. Everyone's after it. Everyone wants it. It is vital. Now the spice is also the cause that Paul sees these hallucinations and these weird dreams and that he sees the future. In the first film, there are also a lot of mentions that Paul is the one, or how they call him, Mahdi or Mehdi or Lisan al-Gaib. I don't know how you pronounce it, but we pronounce it in a different way. But I won't get ahead of myself. I'm gonna get to that name later on in a moment. Whose arrival has been said in the prophecy. So they had this prophecy, and the prophecy was saying, oh, this guy will come along and you should call him Mahdi or Lisan al-Gaib. So in the second film, we see Paul getting closer to Chani and finding his place among the Fremens. We also witness that people slowly start to believe that he actually might be Lisan al-Gaib. And that's because Stilgar easily begins to believe in him, and people follow Stilgar. So if he believes that this boy is the one, then other people will follow. On the other hand, we have Chani, who is, let's call her a non-believer. She doesn't believe in all of these stuff. The word slowly goes around that maybe Paul Atreides isn't dead. And one of those people who is suspicious about this thing is Princess Irulan, played by Florence Pugh. The second film actually begins with her talking about what happened to House of Atreides and what happened to Paul, and everyone thinking that they're dead. They're completely gone and wiped from the face of the planet and the history. No, they're now actually they're part of the history. Now her father, Shaddam IV, the Padishah Emperor, we're just gonna call him the Emperor, played by Christopher Walken, has had something to do with attacking the House of Atreides. And I'm not gonna spoil furthermore, okay? Another character that we get to meet is Fade Rutha Harkonnen. What is with these names? Played by Austin Butler, who's actually Baron Harkonnen's nephew and the next heir to the House of Harkonnen. He's ruthless, brutal. He knows how to make a scene, definitely. He's one hell of a character. So, to sum it up, House of Harkonnen bad. Fremens, people visit, most of them, they believe in Paul being the one. Stilgar is hardcore religious person and who's also a very funny guy actually, and keeps repeating Lisan al-Gaib, anything, and whenever Paul does literally anything. And Chani and Paul are kind of in love, I guess. Yeah, let's call it love. On the other hand, Chani is a non-believer, and Lady Jessica is a little bit of a space Karen. Credits to Grace Randall for that part. Now that we know the story, let's get to the other stuff. So the film will leave you in absolute awe with its amazing makeup and hairstyling, brilliant costume design, phenomenal art direction, eccentric cinematography and editing, but also its epic soundtrack will just leave you speechless and makes you to go back to it later on. But we have to keep in mind that it's the breathtaking performances by all the actors across the board and the stupendous directing by Villeneuve that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, I have to admit that after watching the first film, I had a little bit my guard up. Now, why and how did that happen? Let me explain. You know all those stories about Paul being the one and calling him Mahdi or Lisan al-Gaib? It kind of felt icky to me. As someone who still hasn't read the books and comes from Middle East, I already was familiar with those two terms, Mahdi and Lisan al-Gaib, but in a much different context. Also, as many other probably have mentioned before, they talked about Paul being the white savior, and the film, I know it's based on the book, but a whole story being the kind of white savior kind of story. Now, at the same time, the story with the spice and everyone wanting the spice and trying to harvest it, it kind of felt like the colonization kind of story as well. So I was nervous as to where the story wants to go. And again, I cannot stress this enough. I know this is based on the books, just haven't read them still. So I went to see the second film, having all of these thoughts in my mind, but then a thought popped up in my mind. Something like a possibility. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, Chani was right. And he is right. Being a non-believer, maybe Paul isn't the savior that all these people are looking up to. Maybe he isn't the one. Maybe Paul is both hero and the villain at the same time. And what if all these believers, including Stilgard, find out that he isn't Lisan al-Gaib and it's already too late? Another thing that I want to point out is what happens when you follow something blindly and in an extremist way, like a religion or anything like that, a belief, let's call it. You will basically accept anything and follow without logic or giving it a second thought. And you lose the ability to see the lack of logic and sense in it, which is exactly something that happened with Stilgard. He is exactly that character. On the contrary, and I can 100% understand, Chani, a non-believer who tries to see what is happening from afar, like she has another perspective. And I believe that she has the correct response and reaction to what is happening. And I can totally see why she is afraid of all the stuff surrounding her and she being afraid for the believers. In fact, Chani is my favorite character, not only because she's a non-believer, but because she approaches everything with logic and gives everything a thought. You know, she thinks about everything and she kind of tries to see through everything, but she also has some very cool action sequences. Another thing that got me thinking was the source of inspiration for Frank Herbert's books. Was he by any chance inspired by Middle East cultures or Islam as a religion? Because I don't know if you know this, but Muslims have their own saints and they're called imams, not saints, okay? And there's the last one, like the last imam or the last saint, if you want to call him. And he's exactly called Mahdi. And this is interesting. It gets even more interesting. For many Muslims, he is the savior. He isn't dead. He just lives either among us or in the skies. I'm not sure about this part. But he will be back. He will return, okay? And he will gather this army and there will be a huge fight and he will bring balance to the world. Now it's like he's an avatar. He's the avatar. There are many elements in this story. Anyway, so he gathers an army and he will fight for the justice and rights for everyone. And so he is the savior. And then the resurrection happens. That's what most Muslims believe. So, and his name is Mahdi. And I don't know, can you see the resemblance? The other name, Lisan al-Gaib, is a name that many Iranians call one of the most famous poets. And like the pronunciation is a bit different. It's Lisan al-Gaib. So basically, what is the meaning of Lisan al-Gaib? Okay, or Lisan al-Gaib. What does it mean? Lisan is the tongue, and Gaib means the unknown or unseen, something that you cannot see. So in general, it means the tongue of the unseen, meaning that the person can talk about something that others cannot see, which is 100% like in the context of the film and the story, like it fits 100%. Again, for me, it's very interesting, and I really want to know if Frank Herbert was inspired by, I don't know, the culture or the religion of Islam or something like that, because he specifically used these two names. So that's why it's really interesting for me. Another interesting thing that caught my eye was the Padishah Emperor. So Padishah in Farsi means king, and it's actually translates to the king emperor. Kind of reminds me of the chai tea joke. So don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I didn't love the movie. I absolutely adore the movie. It's amazing, okay? I don't have anything to say on that. It's just these are some of my observations. I couldn't recommend the movie more if you haven't still watched it. I bet many already have. But I have a lot of questions and I am curious. And I cannot wait for the next movie. I cannot wait until I read and complete the book. So again, don't spoil it, okay? And I love what Villeneuve has done with the franchise and with the storytelling, with the world building. He's amazing and he is inspiring to many young cinephiles. I also believe that in the next year's Oscar, the movie will be nominated in multiple categories. Let me just tell you something funny then. I went to see the movie with one of my pals, and anytime, like you have seen the memes of Lisan Al-Gabi's all over the internet, okay? So anytime Stilgar says Lisan Al-Gaib or Mehdi, my friend and I would just burst into laughter and no one would get it because we come from Middle East and we have this past or there are some stuff that we know and it just makes us laugh. Not that we were laughing at the movie, but it's because of where we come from and all the story. So we had a lot of fun watching the movie. Again, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that I am making fun of it. I'm not making fun of it, but these stuff just made me more curious. What I would suggest is that a very funny game when Dune Part 2 will eventually comes on streaming or VOD, whatever, and it's available. You can play a game of shots. Take a shot anytime that Stilgar, whenever Stilgar says Lisan Al-Gaib. That would be brilliant. And that's a game for you, because I will definitely do it. And I know that we won't be able to finish the movie. So these were my observations on Dune Part 2. Sorry that took very long to make this video. Again, I didn't know how to approach the film and how to review it, but here we are. It's not, again, this is not a serious review. My reviews are not serious that much. That's why it's called Cozy Movie Review, because we laugh and we have fun talking about the film. Anyway, let me know what you think about the movie, any thoughts or any other observations that I didn't notice. And until the next Cozy Movie Review, bye.